Hi, how you doing? I hope you're good. I hope you're great because I am. And if you don't know me, my name is Naya, and this is the Divine Embodied, where we talk about spiritual healing, our self development, and how to live as our most divine selves. So, if you want to dive deeper into these things, this is the place. And you can join the inner circle by subscribing here and following me on my Instagram at the Divine Embodied. But anywho, today's video is actually quite personal. So, a couple weeks ago on a Thursday, I have community poll on my stories on Thursday. I can get some feedback and suggestions from you guys and just know where your mind's at. I got a question on my question box asking me how I started with the healing journey, especially at such a young age. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And thank you to the person who left me this question. I have to admit though, whenever it gets to territory that is as personal as this, I tend to be a bit anxious. Something I discovered relatively early in this self-discovery, development, healing journey was that I had developed secrecy and hyper independence as a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism for this belief that I had that I couldn't rely on anyone and that my experiences or feelings would always be invalidated. And this was so ingrained in me to the point that that was just my worldview. I believed that I was absolutely alone emotionally and spiritually. And although I've made a lot of progress since then, especially because it's been quite a few years, sometimes that little voice does creep back in and it tells me that I don't belong and I should just stay in my place because they won't understand. But I always try to challenge it. And today I decided to push myself a bit further because I just feel like it's another barrier that needs to be broken so I can continue growing even further. I'll likely mention this again towards the end of the video, but this journey, despite the name making it seem like it's supposed to have a destination or goal in sight, it's actually more of a process. You will keep having to deal with your triggers again and again, whether it's new ones or the same old ones in new colors. But there's no destination, there's no end, there's only your constant evolution. But anyway, let's get into how I got into this healing journey so young. First off, I don't think that there is such thing as being too young or too old for this, because when it boils down to it, this whole thing is just about trying to be a better person every day, developing skills and beliefs that will actually take you further down the path where you will be fulfilled, to just take what is given that is beyond our control and doing the best you can with it. And there's no age requirement for that. But I understand that, especially for people who have followed my content on Instagram, that it might be more uncommon to hear some of the perspectives that I've offered from someone my age, which, by the way, I'm 21, going 22 soon. I'm far from saying I'm the only one, but it's not usually the trend. But for me, this all started in my late childhood. At some point that isn't very clear to me, a lot of things started changing about my surroundings. And I think it mainly came from me starting to question a lot of things that we were taught to be true, and a lot of pre-established beliefs that we were just taught to follow mindlessly, such as the way we're supposed to operate, interact, even relate to each other and the world. I've never really been a big fan of just mindlessly following things, but the more I seem to challenge how we were taught to see things, the more distance that seemed to create in my major relational dynamics at that age, which were mainly my family and my social group at school. I remember starting to progressively feel lonelier and misunderstood and judged. I remember often being labeled as an angry person or overly sensitive or being called crazy for being expressive with what I felt and saw. The funniest thing is that a lot of times when you have those labels thrown at you, you kind of embody what people see in you, because there's only so much that you can do, especially as a child, when somebody has already decided how they're going to see you. I remember being told so many times that I would never be loved for being myself, or being blamed for things that were completely out of my control, but I was somehow always the black sheep. These things actually became my inner monologue reaffirming those things to me. These voices that were once outside me became my own, and these thoughts became my beliefs. And I was a child. The things we feel now aren't the same that we felt back then. And it's so easy to say now that it's not much, but when you're a child, you don't know any better. You're not supposed to know any better, and you're not supposed to have to go through this. Not to mention that we can never fully translate what we have felt on our skin, so no one can ever really know the full extent of it. To the child version of myself in that moment in time, it was too much and it was for too long. Every day felt the same, like there was nothing separating them from each other. Every day I woke up ready to go back to sleep because I couldn't tell day from night. And I don't think anyone can ever fully understand, unless they've gone through it themselves, what it's like to feel the light that you have inside you switch off. It was a few years of this, and those years, honestly, I barely have memories of. But I do remember that after all those years, one day I felt something, and it was exhaustion. I was exhausted of carrying myself like a dead weight all the time. I was exhausted of time feeling like it was frozen. I was exhausted of feeling empty, but most of all, I was tired of believing that I had no choice. I was tired of waiting for time to end because honestly, I didn't even have hopes of it getting better anymore. But I guess it's true when they say that hope is the last to die, because I can't tell what else made me wake up that day and decide to save myself from this near fatal hopelessness. So at this point, I decided to lean back into my initial curiosity, and I started to look for my own answers. Researching, reading, and learning, especially about what was going on with me and inside my mind. And learning started to feel surprisingly therapeutic to me. I started learning how to understand my mind, how to cope with my mind, and especially how to reframe my mind. I started learning that I did, in fact, have choices and the authority to question the ones that were made for me without any sort of reasoning why. But the most freeing moment that I can remember to this day in detail was this one morning. It was 6 something a.m. I was at the top of this staircase that was outdoors in school, and I liked sitting there because even if people were going by downstairs, nobody ever seemed to look up. So it was the perfect place to hide in plain sight. And I remember wanting so bad to find that little bit of strength to push through this thing and to get through it. And in that moment, I remember just looking up at the sky and thinking to myself, if anyone or anything can hear me, I promise that if I can make it through this, I will make it my life's purpose to make sure that anyone I cross paths with doesn't have to go through the same thing alone. At that point, I had conflicting views about religion. That's why I said if anything or anyone can hear me. This was mainly because I was forced into a perspective I didn't really resonate with. And for the longest time, I didn't even believe that there could be any greater power because I was never allowed to see from another lens. It was the one that they wanted to ingrain in me, or nothing. So at that point, I could only choose nothing. But after this episode on the stairs, though, all the research I had done into healing practices, into spiritual beliefs and the history behind them, into mental wellness, it all opened so many doors for me that I almost had to start believing that something did hear me that day. And that's how I started believing in the universe at large. And all of us have that little bit of the universe in us, that little bit of divinity in us that allows us to actually be conscious creators. And it also led me to believe in the impact that spirituality actually has in our lives, which, by the way, can be completely exclusive from religion in the case of someone like me who doesn't really resonate with organized religion. At this point that all of these breakthroughs are happening, I was already in my early teens. And ever since then, my life has just been a big learning process. And that's how I've taken it. Just a big psychological case study that maybe a higher version of myself is looking back at and taking some learnings from it. And maybe that's really the point of all this. Just learning with the process, believing into that higher version of ourselves to actually come up with definitive answers, because we never get them in this lifetime. You will grow and you will thrive, but you will also get hurt and regress. You will go back and forth, reach new peaks, and discover new lows. But you know that you're doing good and you're on the right path when, regardless of what happens, you still feel good within yourself, or you at least believe in the chance of feeling better. When the life around you is looking and feeling better, or you at least believe in your worthiness to create better for yourself. When you find yourself each day more capable of taking obstacles and turning them in your advantage, or you at least believe that you're capable of learning through your mistakes. Because like I said earlier, this journey, despite the name making it seem like it should have a destination, it is actually a process. A lifelong process. You will keep having to deal with your triggers again and again, whether it's new ones or the same old ones in new colors. It is a journey indeed, but not a journey to a goal. It's the journey to really living. So, in a very summarized way, that has been my process into the healing journey of nearly a decade up to this day. So I hope the question was answered. And thank you so much again for the follower who left me this question. It actually means so much to me. And it was a great opportunity for me as well to challenge myself, to challenge my comfort zone, and to push me out of my boundaries. I hope that this is as helpful for you as the question was for me. If anyone has any more questions or doubts about the healing journey, about my experience in it, or even about your own experience in it, let me know through my DMs on my Instagram account, or comment them here in the comment section. See you guys on the next one.